is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to the Project Boro preview show, which means we are almost back from the international break. What a horrid, terribly dull fortnight it has been, but we're here today to preview Boro's upcoming fixture, as always, as we return to the Riverside to host Preston North. That's the bunny. That's the house bunny right there. She's doing her best to put me off. She's so cute. But yes, today, pardon the bunny, we are going to be looking ahead to Boro's home game against Preston. And this is where the season starts now, I truly believe. You know, the first few weeks of the season, you've got new signings coming in through the summer, possible players leaving and coming in and going out with the transfer window still very much alive. And, you know, new managers coming into teams coming up, teams coming down, lots of teams trying to establish a new style of play. It's a little bit up and all over the place. But now we've had 2 weeks, international break. Coaches have had more time with their teams. The transfer deadline day has shut. And now it's a case of we know what we've got and we can now crack on with it. And Boro come into this game off the back of a win against Cardiff, 7 points from 12, a solid enough start, you could say. However, we can't say the same for Preston North End, who've had possibly, not on paper, but one of the worst possible starts to a season anyone could wish to have. They've suffered 3 defeats from their opening 4 games, and for every defeat, they've had a manager, because they've gone through 3 managers already in their opening 4 games as well. They currently sit 21st in the league. Their only win came at home to Luton in a 1-0 win. Other than that, they've lost at home to Sheffield United, of course, on the opening day, and they've also suffered, more crucially in terms of the context of this fixture, 2 very tough, brutal away defeats. They lost 3-1 to newly promoted Oxford at the Kazam and 3-0 down at Swansea, meaning that away from home, Preston have lost both away games, conceding 6 and scoring only 1. So, it's not a good time for Preston at all, but as I say, the international breaks probably come at a good time for Heckingbottom and probably come at a good time for Preston. I bet they were desperate for this international break just to allow things to settle down. This is the start of their season. This is the start of their reset. I know a lot of teams will say the season starts now, even though not much is changing, barring maybe a couple of new players, but it feels like this is literally the start for Preston. They will have drawn a line, wanted to just banish the opening 4 games, and they'll want to start afresh. But unfortunately for them, coming to the Riverside is one of probably the hardest tests they could have asked for, starting their season all over again. As for Paul Heckingbottom, though, he does deserve a mention, because I feel like he is a very safe pair of hands, and I do feel like he will get Preston going in the right direction eventually. So in terms of timing, this still might be a better time to play Preston if you're looking at them like Boro, before he really gets his teeth stuck into this team. He gets his claws deep into the tactics and what he wants from them. I think they'll be improving. I think they'll probably be better this week as to what they were against Oxford prior to the international break, but I still think it's a good time to play them, especially when they're travelling on the road. A couple of the stats for you regarding Preston that, again, doesn't paint a pretty picture for them. It's not like they've been unlucky this season. It's not like they've massively underperformed or they've maybe created a lot and failed to take their chances or been unlucky at the back. They are 23rd in the league for expected goals. They've only created a total XG of 2.7 across all of their 4 games thus far, which isn't great. And they're 3rd for XG against, so they've conceded the 3rd most chances in the league, only behind Portsmouth and Plymouth, with an XG against of 6.9. So things need to turn for Preston pretty quickly. Will they turn this weekend at the Riverside? Time will tell. Looking at the Preston team, however, and this is where things could be a little bit tough to predict from a Boro point of view, because of course Paul Heckingbottom, being a new coach, will have come in and might still be trying to find the best players to fit his system, and having a 2-week international break might have given him a lot of time to maybe think of a few things he might want to do differently. But looking at their most recent game, you can see that they set up with a 3-1-4-2 formation, and interestingly enough, there's a few notable names in this team that I recognise both for good and for bad. Freddie Woodman was in goal. He dropped a 4.9 on FootMob, which was a pretty dreadful rating that game. He's a goalkeeper I always hear a lot about. It's either extremely positive or negative for him, and knowing Boro's look thus far this season, we've come up against some pretty incredible goalkeepers, so he'll probably knock out a 10 out of 10 at the weekend, but he's certainly, as much as I'm sure he's capable of having really good days, he's equally just as capable of having some really, really bad ones as well. They did have a back three of Story, Lindsay and Hughes. Liam Lindsay was, however, sent off for 2 yellow cards in that game, so I believe he will be missing the game against Boro. So they are missing a centre-back that was at the heart of their defence. They have Whiteman, who seemingly sits in front of the back three, so I think Ben Whiteman will be playing a crucial role against Boro if he is in that same hole, protecting the back three from lots of Boro attackers. They might stick him on Finn Azaz, for example, and try to man-mark Azaz out the game, stop him creating chances and dictating play, as we know he likes to do. They then have a solid midfield 4 in front, which will be interesting to see how Boro penetrate and break through that. They've got Potts and Kessler-Hayden on either side. Now, whether they stick with them two, I don't know. I can possibly see each of them, whoever plays in them two positions, dropping back and maybe turning Preston's back three into a back five, because we know Boro's full backs like to advance, and up against a back three, that could cause absolute chaos. There'll be space all over the place for Lath, Azaz, whoever is on Boro's left-hand side, McGree, maybe to really, really create chances there. So it wouldn't surprise me if they sort of dropped into a back five. And if that left a midfield 2 of maybe Thadarsson and Sam Greenwood, who we know incredibly well, I would back Boro's central midfield to boss that area of the pitch with Hackney and Morris, I believe. The one area of the starting 11 which I might have a few concerns about from a Boro point of view are Preston's 2 forwards. They played with 2 up top against Oxford. Will Keane is one. He scored a goal this season, I believe, so he's always in for a goal and is a potential threat on his day. The other is Emile Rees, who has a stupid record of scoring against Boro, and is just one of them players. Every team has them, where there's that one player who you come up against every season, and even if he drops 0 out of 10s in every other game he plays, you just know he will rock up and score against you, and that player is Emile Rees. So it wouldn't surprise me if he found a goal from absolutely nowhere against Boro. But yeah, looking at the way they set up, it would not surprise me whatsoever if Heckingbottom set up this Preston side to be really, really solid and defensive, because, as I say, they've conceded 6 goals from their 2 away games thus far, and they won't be getting any away points anytime soon if their defence continues to perform that poorly, and they are incredibly blunt going the other way. So it wouldn't surprise me if Preston sat deep and did what a lot of other sides have done in the past, which, as we know, can be Boro's Achilles heel and our kryptonite, which is breaking through defences, which are very resilient with a low block. And I feel like a lot of newly promoted sides will do that, and they might not have the quality, and that might give Boro a chance. However, I am a little worried that with a lot more experienced championship level players in Preston's team, a lot of players who have a lot more know-how and experience at this level, they, along with Heckingbottom, will make things extremely difficult for Boro. And as I say, in a lot of these sort of games, the first goal is absolutely crucial, but I get onto that in my prediction. As for the Boro 11, there's a little bit of unpredictability about Boro's 11 as well, because we are awaiting a ton of our first team players to be back, and we believe a big reason as to why we never saw some of them prior to the international break is because they were being kept back, so we could give them an extra 2-week break, so they were coming back for the Preston game fully fit, not rushing them back unnecessarily. A couple of them players are potentially Rav van den Berg in the centre-back pairing with Matt Clark, and maybe Riley McGree on the left-hand side. I would love both of them to be in the team. So this is my lineup versus Preston. Again, we have no idea how far off some of these injured players are. I have gone with the usual Dieng in goal. Borges keeps his place at left back. There might be a chance Engels brought back in. I don't know how much of his absence at Cardiff was down to his injured wrist or his form, but I think Borges' debut was solid. Wouldn't surprise me to see him keep that place on the left-hand side, and I have stuck Rav van den Berg in my predicted 11. I am a little bit more concerned about him being back over Riley McGree. I don't know if he's trained. Obviously, Carrick's press conference will give us more, but that's not until Thursday. There were rumours that he was a couple of weeks off before the break, but there were also some that said the injury was nothing too serious and we were just giving him more time to recover. So ideally, we could get Rav back alongside Clark, moving Ayling back to his natural position on the right-hand side. If not, I think we'll see exactly what we did before the break. We might see Luke Ayling at centre-back with Dyke still on the right, or we could see Luke Ayling still be at right-back and George Edmondson, who come in on deadline day, might be thrown straight in to start alongside Matt Clark. We will see. The midfield two has to stay the same, even if Johnny Howson's back. It has to remain Hackney and Morris whenever the pair of them are fit, and I think the attacking three has to be McGree on the left, Azaz and Isaiah Jones. I get Ben Doak's come in. A lot of Boro fans are really intrigued and excited to see Ben Doak, as am I, but he won't be thrown straight in. He'll have to earn his place to get by Isaiah Jones, who has that shirt currently. Hopefully, though, the introduction of Doak will help or force or ensure that Jones maintains a good performance level. Azaz, despite all of the crazy discourse around him, has to start for me at the 10. I know a lot of people want Conway in there, but I think Azaz is our most creative player. He will be incredibly important in terms of unlocking this Preston defence. If McGree is fit, on the left, he starts over Bergzorg, over Hamilton or anybody else. And then I do have Latilaf to start. There was a little bit, of course, doubt because of all the deadline day drama, but I think that's long gone now, and the 2-week international break will allow the dust to settle on all of that. And I think Latilaf will definitely come back in to start. And finally, before we finish with my prediction, the head-to-head is interesting. Now, it's massively in favour of the home teams. The home side in this fixture dominates for the most part. We, more often than not, batter Preston when they come to Riverside, but then equally they batter us when we go down to Deepdale. So the head-to-head in the league currently stands with Boro on 8 wins, Preston on 4 with 6 draws between them. A little note on Boro's away record, not that it has much context to this game, but it backs up my previous point. Boro have lost their last 4 trips to Deepdale at an aggregate score of 11-3 to Preston. But equally, Boro have won 3 of our last 4 home games at home to Preston with an aggregate score of 11-2. Preston did last win at the Riverside in November 2021. They come from behind that day and scored with their only 2 shots on target. So it wasn't an outstanding performance, but they did beat us that day. But recent times, it hasn't been a happy hunting ground for Preston. The last 2 visits, in fact, to the Riverside have resulted in Boro winning 4-0 on both occasions. So the head-to-head, on top of the respective form of both teams, Boro's unbelievable creative output and Preston's terrible defensive output, I guess you could call it, with the goals they've conceded on the road, do edge me towards a Boro win. It's not even my bias at this point. I think it is just logical to predict a Boro win here, although I think Preston will keep improving. They will come good under Heckingbottom. He will steady that ship, but I still think they've got a little bit of way to go until we start to see that. And going to the Riverside is not a happy hunting ground. So my prediction is going to be Boro 3, Preston 0. Hope we get a clean sheet. Preston, as I say, will probably be very defensive, and they've not scored many away from home so far this season. But that's my thoughts on Boro versus Preston. Let me know yours in the comments. I'd be eager to hear from Boro fans and Preston fans alike. And as always, we'll be back after the game at the weekend to review it and look back on it in the Project Boro Reviewing Show, on top of all the other great content we have on the channel. And as I always say, if you'd rather listen to this on the podcast providers, do head over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcasts. All links are in the description. You can listen to these shows on the go if you prefer. And if you do, give me a like and a follow and a rating over there. That would be much appreciated. And if you're watching here on YouTube, of course, leave me a comment, hit that like button and subscribe for much more. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.